Welcome to Gen Z Amigas, where we unpack the realities shaping our generation. And today's conversation, I'm sure, is more of an elephant in the room of conversations all over the world. But maybe it's something we don't talk about as openly, and that's kind of the goal of today. We're calling it almost affected, living next to war without actually living in the war. For many Gen Zs in the Gulf, we may not be directly experiencing conflict, but we still feel its emotional and everyday ripple effects when it comes to family, when it comes to news, uncertainty about the future, rising costs, not just in the region, but globally, shifting opportunities, and feeling that, anything could change quickly due to this uncertainty. And it's not necessarily fear in the traditional sense, but more of an ongoing awareness and emotional weight. We question, what if things escalate? What if opportunities become limited? What if stability suddenly changes? And how does constantly living with that awareness affect the way we think, we plan our lives, and emotionally, how does it affect people all over the world? And to explore this, I'm joined by two very thoughtful voices navigating different perspectives. We have Sanjana Raheja, Associate Partner and the Head of MENA Global Investment Center at LvlUp Ventures, bring insight into entrepreneurship, career building, and how uncertainty impacts young professionals and the startup culture. So welcome, Sanjana, and thank you for taking the time. And we have Leen Dahmash, a psychology student at McGill University, bringing the perspective on emotional well-being, anxiety, and an overall of how young people who were in the Gulf at the time of the war process uncertainty and that experience. So welcome, Leen.
Thank you.
Now, to begin, even without direct conflict or war and instability still shape how young people feel and plan and move throughout daily life. So, Leen, I want to ask you to begin. Why do people, do you think, feel emotionally affected by conflict, even when they're maybe not experiencing it? And can you maybe talk about a bit about with that question, how it was in Dubai, experiencing it and now being away in Berlin on exchange and how that whole time was for you?
Um, I feel like a lot of people do feel very emotionally affected by the conflict, even when not directly experiencing it. I think a huge factor is like the threat towards your family and friends. I think when your
Yeah.
family is experiencing it, you do feel like immediately closer to the threat, and you naturally tend to worry more. And even knowing that they're safe and your government and their country is that they live in is protecting them and is keeping them safe, and you still worry because you care a lot about them. But
Mhm.
having had direct exposure to the conflict and having been there when it started, I do actually feel like it was quite worrisome, and it did make me nervous for the times I knew I wouldn't be with my family and my friends. But I
Mhm.
also know that like I actually worried less than I thought I would because I know that they're okay because having experienced it,
Yeah.
it's not I think you kind of get used to the lifestyle while it's happening. And of course, the fear is still there, but I would say it's definitely less worrisome than I thought it would be. But also, I would say, like, a place that does feel like home to me is Dubai, is where we grew up. And like the UAE is a place that just feels like home to me. And to have a place that feels so like home um, be threatened, and it can be really impactful for like a lot of people that
Mhm.
live there, people who grew up there, people with emotional ties to the country and the places like the regions in the Middle East. And it's that sense of community that we grew up in. For many people, it's considered like a safe space. I mean, I know it was for me. I
Mhm.
think it was for you too, Maha.
Sure.
And yeah, it's definitely scary to see like from afar that one safe space is definitely like being tampered with, and it's just it's just it's emotional.
Yes, for sure. And I think I completely agree with you. And I'm sure everyone that's been in Dubai and the UAE and the Gulf can kind of say that it's a safe haven compared to the rest of the world. That's what they're known for.
Yeah.
So when that's put at risk, it is quite emotional. It's a lot in the way. And Sanjana, I wanted to turn to you and ask you, have periods of this regional instability in your eyes and what you've seen and your overall experience changed how young people approach maybe careers or entrepreneurship or taking risks or trying to find a job, etc.? How has that all played a role?
I mean, from one side of things, we've seen how it was when COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
That was an instability in itself, and I had just gotten into the workplace at that time, right? Um, we've also seen how the government over here, how the country over here has taken charge and taken care of, this thing happening. And at that point in time, it was something that has affected every nation.
Mhm.
So in this case, of course, it's a little bit close to how it works over here. But at the same time, I do relate to how emotional it was when things were just starting out. And at the same time, the way Leen described it as, hey, it can be super emotional at times, and at the same time we don't know what's going to happen. But also on the other side of the spectrum, the government has really understood that, hey, this is how we're feeling, this is definitely a safe haven. And it's not that they don't realize it, they absolutely do. So I think they really understand as to, how well they need to help out, whether it's in terms of students, whether it's in terms of people in the workplace, or even founders or entrepreneurs who also have that very volatile environment. And of course, it's by work where they have to be cases of volatility, right? Especially when you're building a company from ground up. From that perspective, of course, there's been a lot of support that's come in, so that we have that trust and we have that support when it comes to understanding that, hey, it's not something that's going to be extremely volatile, because the government has our back. So it was very nice to see how things did seem very overwhelming at first, but at the same time we are hopeful, even on a global level, that, hey, things are going to turn around and come back to a positive.
Hmm. Yes, I think slowly but surely things will come back. I mean, there was just an alert in the UAE when there hasn't been for weeks. So
Yeah.
it's this uncertainty again. But I do believe and I agree with you that long term things will go back slowly but surely. Lean, I wanted to turn to you again and bring this perspective of even when life appears stable on the surface, uncertainty can create a constant mental background noise, a feeling that things should shift at any moment. And obviously, on in the news and on social media, there's a huge amplification of information and videos and people's direct experiences of things. So I wanted to ask you, does social media amplify fear and anxiety by making conflict feel constant and unavoidable? And what's your opinion on the coverage of what's going on?
I think I'd say I have two perspectives on this. I think from one side, it's very insightful. Like we do as a generation get most of our information from social media, the news. Like we are a very media focused generation. We've grown up with it our whole lives. Like it makes sense. And I do think obviously it gives us a lot of insight and knowledge and exposure, which I guess we wouldn't be exposed to if we didn't have these resources. Um,
Yeah.
but I do think also, like, in a weird way, it can reduce stress because it keeps us informed, it keeps us aware of what's going on, especially obviously when I was home, it was different because I was experiencing it. But here, the only way I can keep up to date with what's going on is messaging my family or calling them or
Mhm.
reading the news. And I think it's super vital that we have that. But on the other hand, I can say, like, I can 100% tell you that it can also cause really high stress levels. I think that awareness can be extremely emotionally taxing. When I was there, I was constantly checking the news, especially at the start. Like, I was mindlessly scrolling and like looking for answers that just weren't like there. Like, it was just so uncertain. There was no way for us to know like what was happening. And I had to tell myself to put my phone away and like my iPad away. I was like, I can't look at anything anymore because you kind of just spiral into this like web of like worry, and it just, if you don't move away from it, it's very hard to like distract yourself from that. So I do think like it has both positives and negatives. And I do think that the way the UAE has handled all of the media and the way that they've been able to make everyone feel safer is super important, because I didn't realize how safe I had felt due to that until I had left. And I was like, wow, that really made a difference. But I also do think like things like that also did affect like sleep, and like I was like barely sleeping at the start. It was really stressful, just like a lot of different reasons. Like I think out of fear, just the alerts, the interception, like lots of different noises and stuff. And I think it was scary. And I would definitely say like emotions were heightened. A lot of people felt taxed. But I think, yeah, like there's definitely like both perspectives, and
Yeah.
I think it's important to like consider both of them.
For sure. And I think your point about how the UAE has done such a great job of making citizens feel safe and okay when even when they are getting threats, etc. And I wanted to kind of ask you, Sanjana, within the UAE and within the Gulf, leaders are trying to make the citizens and residents feel very calm. But I feel as though, and you could maybe say that from an outside perspective, because of the news, etc., people that don't know what's going on or are not living there maybe are not aware of that and think the opposite. So I wanted to ask you, how does that uncertainty maybe that you've seen or in the future could influence entrepreneurs, career moves, people moving in and out of Dubai, UAE? What is your opinion in that?
So I think when it comes to how there were so many news and social media channels having so much of a distinction between what's actually happening versus what's being displayed, a good insight or a good point I do want to mention was something that had happened when we were in late March or early April. Right. There was a phone call from my grandmom, and she was like, "Oh my God, there's so much happening, and I'm seeing so many things in the news. And is this actually what's happening?" And my mom, on video call, of course, shows a picture of the running road, and I mean, shows a video of the running road happening in real time. And she's like, "Look, this is actually what is happening. Like, there's literally nothing what you're seeing on the news that's like going up in flames or things like that. That's not actually what's happening." And it was so funny because my grandmom's like, she's seen the news, and of course that's actually what's happening online on social media. You open X and it's insane. Like, you have no idea about whether what you're seeing over there are AI generated, or the actual things that's happening, or they're just edited images of things that are
Yeah.
happening over there. We're living in the country and we're seeing that, okay, fine, sure, there might have been something that has happened, or there are probably wind blows or things like that that are showing up. But then at the same time, we're also seeing the after effects, which are close to none because they're being very well handled. And because we're experiencing it, we're able to see, all right, fine, there's so much of a difference between what's actually being portrayed online versus not what's actually been portrayed. I mean, what's being portrayed online versus what's actually happening, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are not seeing that. And if you're going to be seeing things on social media, you're going to have to start realizing that, hey, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of news that somehow try to adjust and make things change, and not really seem what they are in fact. So it was very helpful to see how things were being handled in actuality, because we're able to make that distinction between what's AI generated in the form of a reel versus what the government is actually doing right on ground. And it's just that thing that really gives you that perspective that, hey, no, this is actually, there's a difference between what's going on. But at the same time, this is also only something that you're able to see when you're living in the country versus someone who is from living on the outside and is not able to really make that differentiation. So yes, there's a little bit of that difference that's going on. So you don't know how do you explain it well.
Yeah, fully. I fully agree with you. It's like, yeah, like you said at the start, it's like there's a complete difference of what's going on versus what people see. And I see that now when I speak to people that don't know much about the conflict, but they know that I'm connected to it as I have family there, I grew up there, and they want to know. And when I tell them, when I was in Dubai a couple of weeks ago, and they say, and I told them, yeah, it was fine. There was a couple of alerts, but it was normal. I never really felt unsafe. And they're like, wow, like they don't think, they don't assume that because of what they see on the news. So I wanted to close out and ask you guys each a question on, first of all, a statement or something that you want to say about the future of the region, how the war, anything that you would like to say, and what's one mindset shift that helps you and can help others deal with this uncertainty that's going around. I don't know, Leen, if you want to begin.
Um, I would say for a mindset shift that I would focus on to help deal with the uncertainty, I would definitely say um, that I would focus on things that I can manage and kind of like act with kind of intention towards those things rather than focus on things that are really uncertain.
Mhm.
Um, and kind of just not fixating on those things because comes to a point where there's not much we can actually do about any of it. And we can just hope for the best. And we know
Yeah,
that our like the UAE and the government will keep our families and this country safe. So, yeah.
for sure. And Sanjana?
Leen, I think you put this in a very nice way, right? You mentioned how
Thank
you
you.
can, even on this is something that's applicable to any sphere of life. Like you can take control of things that you can take control of, right? And leave the rest to, whatever luck or, the government or, the country. That's also my answer in a nutshell, right? Don't worry about things that you can't
Yeah.
control yourself. And yes, there are things that you can control. Take hold of that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah. That's very insightful and something that I haven't actually thought of, but because I'm sure everyone has gone in this cycle of constant worry, checking your phone, but at the end of the day, focus on what you can control and what you can't, and hope that everything will be okay. And I'm sure for people watching, if you didn't know before that the UAE is safe and that people that are connected to it are very feel fine there, and I think that's a good thing to talk about. And I really, really learn a lot from your perspectives, Leen and Sanjana. Thank you so much, and hope to see you guys soon. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maha. Thanks for having us.